submitting to act upon my sworn commitment of seeking revenge against my own ego has proven my worth as a hunter thus far. The curse is close to being dispelled at last. However harsh or brutal the expenses of these damn scars may be to endure, the cause is just. But I require more sustenance. In order to ensure my full recovery, I must look far beyond and wide to rediscover the 10 monsters I've seen to feel greatly admired about their ethereal qualities. And each of them I shall bestow a gift for the highest degree of honor. Brachydios. What good shall be set forth to present a unique display of creativity if the good has sustained heavy lacerations to outcome a prehistoric rampage that leaks corrosive puddles of timeless destruction? Though even with that singular quality of turbulent disaster leaking from salivated ignition, the summon of such an explosive outbreak of a rampage is one that prestigiously makes an effective debut for the natural behavior of the Brachydios. A being that disobeys the laws of nature, violently charging into battle and realters the environment, causing a sound of warning to be heard for further notice, beginning the arrival for Brachydios to mark its territory. An explosive frenzy that cannot be stopped, aimlessly scrambling around in hopes to survive the instincts it follows, still producing sounds of warning until the gong allows rinse and repeat. A classic indeed. Though, regrettably, I can't help but remember the time back when I mistook the quest for Zynoger instead of Brachydios. Didn't realize the accident until it was already too late. Forgive me, old friend, but this is all I could give to you. Garoba Deora. An extremely rare sighting beholds the airship's crew in unattainable awe as they discover an untold species of Kushala Deora. Scales of gold and shards of diamond radiate with sheer beauty and elegance. An appearance so undeniably majestic, it defines life itself as something that is especially said to be valuable. An elder dragon that grants good fortune to all who encounter it through divine intervention, testing to see what they're worth in melee combat, accompanied with an admirably interesting orchestral performance consisting of a quarrel between percussion and brass continuously fighting on to prove that one is more worthy than the other. But the strings in the background grow more irritated for their constant arguing. Foolish behavior that's too much for them to handle, until it's decided they've had enough of their redundant quarrels over such notions of greed. Thus revealing their worthiness by ascending into the skies. Soaring with transcendence. And now, everyone has officially been deemed worthy. Marvelous. For a moment, Sergios! In the midst of time, back when the frenzy virus caused an uproar of savage corruptive rebellion against the lives of nature, the Ceregios population dispersed into cataclysm after an apex caused a sudden disruption to their habitats. A dreaded situation that could not be any more worse for hunters to grasp, now that they appear in various widespread locations that shouldn't be naturally seen, making their hunting obligations significantly more difficult to complete. All thanks to the Ceregios constantly interrupting the primary objective in the worst of times to imagine. Dangerously aggressive, extremely relentless, but also a major nuisance for the countless failures it's caused. Once disaster strikes, a severe case of bleeding is surely to follow after it presents the dance of 1,000 blades. Razor-sharp movements that can cripple even the strongest of warriors down to vulnerability. Music sent out in an alarming fashion that goes along perfectly for an unwanted visitor such as the Ceregios, completely replacing the other one in the process each time it makes its appearance to distract the hunters and prevent them entirely from fulfilling their goal. Dulemadira. Deceitful beckoning emanates through the walls of the Sky Corridor. Unwariness sought to discover the encounter of a lifetime, only contains naught but despair plotting to expel an onslaught none can possibly hope to foresee. Lurking inside an isolated area beyond the tower doors holds a hellborn monstrosity that invokes naught but fear to paralyze the hearts into a screeching halt to all who shall experience such feral outrage. A menacingly unrelenting damnation that bears the lungs to inhale extremely vast amounts of sovereign rage and exhales ordeal in every breath it takes to ensure the future of more dismembered lifeless corpses sent to its victims. A living nightmare that withholds the mysterious will to lay siege upon other elder dragons. Deciphering the purpose for this behavior is rendered completely written as unknown. But on that note, it wields all the power in the universe to attain such a foul deed that's been pierced violently through its demanding impulse. Ye who shall pursue the infernal mystery known as Dulemadira, take heed, for its unassailable sovereignty commences a dreaded onslaught that requires courage alone to survive. Detaining from these words will result in your demise. In an immediate gesture of unwelcome, Dulemadira's merciless desires outcomes the upheaval to shatter the realm of ice, transmuting into a volatile, explosive downpour of death, stained with blood like venom. Toxic vapor invigorating the air until the condition of Sky Corridor is entirely drenched in potent lethal elements. Shrieking out in horror, building with intensely demoralizing apprehension, mercy forsaken, light has ceased, only darkness remains in the atmosphere. Until an outrage of insanity is unleashed, overflowing with powers of a new evil to bring forth chaos upon hunters that have entered and trespassed inside the den of Dulemadira. Locked inside, survival is crucial. An orchestra that has been summoned to greatly symbolize its irrevocably dangerous levels of aggression. Crimson Fatalis. An Emperor of Hellfire stands tall in scorching resentment. Its soul-piercing glare causes the present tense to be forcefully forsworn and overruled by the era that once devastated the land and brought life down to its knees. Cast by the terrifying legendary black dragon feared to all who tremble before the sound of its name, Fatalis. Living history with scales covered in the ashes of human victims, forged as a mockery against our foolishly notorious behavior by hunting monsters as nothing but mere cattle for immoral cause. History written in blood, now being witnessed as the very afterimage of a dragon that once brought an end to civilization. Now in a time when the gates of hell have been torn asunder, emerging out through the eternal flames, burning with hate, seething with anger, demanding fealty for all mortals to repent for their sins or have their bodies immolated and souls extinguished by the wrath of the Crimson Demon. True horror made real, as a marching waltz of death is set alight, the pounding drums made to tremble in fear as it approaches, hellish vocals heard serving loyalty to their leader, until the female choir speaks the name Fatalis, after their tones suddenly shift from angelic to deceiving. What follows next has already begun. Miru, unknown fox wyvern. Dire urgency strikes forth in an infinity, wrought by something far more completely different that's beyond normal standards of an encounter. An unspeakable madness emanates a dreaded aura of malicious corruption, growing exponentially to surround the atmosphere in an ethereal display of turmoil. Slashing through the stars of the heavens, ravaging across time and space, dismantling the gap between life and death until only the last remains standing. Pure evil energy emerging from a fiercely contorted abomination that no one can ever possibly dare to imagine of existing. It lives, it breathes, it waits, it thirsts for blood, it destroys the law of life. An overwhelming sense of dread that now thrives down below the point of no return, walking upon the surface, pulsating with unspoken powers eagerly awaiting to be brought out from its cell. Is it not just so, but an enigmatic creature of unknown origin, abolishing the fabric of reality through culminated ultra-dimensional presence, causing this uproar of a rampage? What sort of foul creature holds the ability to alter its appearance and change shape at its own will? Why has such incredulous power vested from this behemoth been manifested onto the battleground? What intention could its black heart be commanding to attain in such impromptu circumstances for critically eminent advisories sent to our brave warriors? More importantly, however, what is it? So many unanswered questions continue to be brought into mind that I'm afraid only the gods from above know about its true identity. I am only able to determine the iota that's been brought in tandem with its force immediate urgent quest disposition. 'Tis naught but an ominous howl in the distance, summoning a dreadfully foreboding rampage filled with ambiguation. An intensely symphonic outburst building with energy and a deliberate notion to qualify the end to a life draws near. A heavy weaponized orchestra that's completely shrouded in mystery to represent its outer dimensional message of fearing the unknown. Especially for the predacious rebel, such as the mysterious amalgamation, only known as the Miru. Gammoth! Bitter freezing cold weather swarms the air in a perpetual blizzard. Distant tremors can be detected from miles away. The presence of power, bellowing with legend, manifests the law of fate residing above the precipice. A raging snowstorm rests atop the Arctic mountains, withholding fierce brutality from the beast that presents it. An extraordinarily powerful rampage pulverizes the polar region with ferocious might. Natural turbulence made true by the wrath of the Gammoth. Known as the god of the mountains, merciless retaliation, ruthless demeanor, heavily persistent, massive strength. One cannot detain to concur an inspirationally exquisite display of magnificence such as she. For that raging storm just so arrives to enable the rampage to represent her sheer greatness conquering the atmosphere, until it builds up to express her greatness even further in a rising crescendo ending with perfect glory. Greatness that truly resembles the Gammoth, god of the mountains. Beautiful performance indeed. Iruzirion. In this time, an elder dragon that holds authority for binary manipulation commences a scene of unstable elemental chaos spreading across the surface, after it was only using just a mere fraction of its power. Destructive properties that have now been amplified at unspeakable levels of efficiency. Transcendent abilities that now cover the entire area it resides in. A nuclear outrage built at maximum amounts of hell-blazing fire and soul-freezing ice merged together as one, fully enraged to greatly enhance both elements at lethal proportions, thus proceeding to express the meaning of anger by hedging its bet to attain an immediate opposition against its victims to fall by the hands of an avatar. One divine beast that has officially mastered the arts of fusion. An overzealous display of powerful drums crashing down without mercy. A violin going borderline ridiculous as the bow tears everything apart on the surface to unleash its true power held within. Qualities off the charts to represent Iruzirion's insurmountable desperation attempt of relentless retaliation. Nakarkos! Silence invokes the atmosphere. The realm of nothingness leaks energy in the form of a haunting message, spreading across the ecosystem that thrives around the desolate region, an ominous sign of warning forced to receive what hears it. For the macabre lurking from within the abyss known as Wyvern's End beckons for a higher calling to insist on abandoning those words spoken by positive morality, for which they obeyed and have fallen to the depths of enveloping darkness. A trap that cannot be escaped out of, but only to accept the fate of being consumed by the harbinger of death that placed it, swimming through a sea of bones left over from the victims it's devoured. Skeletons once owned by monsters and humans alike scattered about, pasted together as the very layer's surface. A creature of the deep, wrought with terror, carved in lifeless scales, sent from the unknown, hides beneath elusively to deceive with its serpent-like tentacles, beginning the encounter, before the truth of its identity finally unravels itself in a shocking twist of discovery. The gluttonous, life-destroying cephalopod, Nakarkos, suddenly emerges, ready in the next batch that's fallen into its den to be harvested, and therefore will be made one with the pile they stand on. No way out. And finally, Shang-Tian. Before then, it started off as a delicately calm reconciliation of mystifying wonder, when the myth has become a true legend for the people on board. But the act of defending its territory was the purpose for its grand arrival, not to be praised, followed by a sudden draw to assemble a thunderstorm around the atmosphere, arising the birth of its anger, sent for being opposed by the mortals it seeks to throw down. Qualities that are expressed even more by the storm it's cast out to be greatly intensified, and the color of its eyes changing from deep blue to a furious red. until the levels of immense provocation causes it to gain the dreaded urge of obliterating the airship out of the sky and leading the crew to fall straight down into its lair, where it waits to finish them off without mercy, in a time where fate now suddenly rests in their hands. Stranded within the unassailable wrath of an elder dragon sworn to kill, nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. This will be their final destination. A compounded situation that couldn't be any more catastrophic, as the abolishing fury of Shang-Qian is so great far beyond reckoning that it's not just about them fighting for their own lives, but it's also the entire world that's at stake. An expense that cannot be condoned to see the light. They must fight onward to slay what lies right before them, even if the entire world depends on it. Chaos will undoubtedly overrule and bring an end to all life if such a failure was brought in. Powerful feelings of emotion, courageous will of authority by justifying the odds bound together to rectify. The transcendence of insurmountable levels of epic exploding from the choir gives new meaning to godlike. The greatest honor I could ever give it.
For over a year, I have felt lost in grief. Revisiting the past I once lived in as my hunting career began was most regretful. In all truth, I really was inexperienced in every reason, structure, rule, aspect, and form. How asinine my morals were to condone such a haphazard desire, as if I actually understood the meaning behind it all. That commitment only bestowed an unyielding strain to feel shame over who I was before. I implore anyone out there who hears this message spoken in a strong, self-deprecating tone to not ever look back in time when I was brought into this realm I now call a monumental inspiration. Ask why, and you'll soon understand how I currently feel, now that those days are finally over.
What was once broken has been fixed. Everything I have accomplished to receive this accolade has thus officially led up to this very moment. The time where I lift up my newly remade ambition shall be embedded on my fully revitalized spirit, preparing to engage and lead itself into victory. A heroic melody that it plays out to greatly admire my success. The gift of liberation. How I have deeply missed this feeling for so very long. But I've said quite enough already. There is all but one last procedure that needs to be finalized before I head off into a new journey that awaits me. And that would be to remember this one. If it wasn't for Poke Village and its endearingly calm and collected atmosphere that welcomes others with open arms, my spirit would have already faded out of existence the longer I stayed lamenting on the edge of Wyvern's End. The healing I have received was plentiful enough for me to carry out to Chaotic Gore Magala. The suffering it has undergone throughout time was too immense for me to witness while it struggled with me in battle. All the while, he has naught but suffered in pain. Though it was certainly difficult, I did what was best for him. The Order of Chaos was slain. Suffer no more! A creature like you deserved to be free. In the midst of travel, lurking deep from within the wilderness, spawned the odd yet fascinating Chameleos. Usually docile in nature, but when the instinct of endangering wildlife ensues, hunters dispatch. During that quest, they've stolen a considerable amount of my supplies, and though I let one of them go, the rest have paid the price. It was but fate that has gifted me the utmost desire to challenge the fierce warrior of the land they call Glavenus. Our combined strengths were insuperable, as our blades scorched the competition. Glavenus, though we were evenly matched, I still enjoyed showing my own ways of representing true power to a warrior like you. And I'm looking forward to the day when I challenge you again in the new world. But instead of facing off against something that should stay underground, I'd much more prefer to challenge something more corrosive. A worthy opponent indeed. Let the law of fate reunite us once again, so that our blades can finally cross together when the time arrives. Accept my challenge, acidic Glavenus. Our battle will be legendary. While I was still recovering from the fierce battle I had with EX Hellblade Glavenus, I was suddenly greeted by an army of Astalos, led by their deviant counterpart Bolt Reaver. all for the sole devotion of testing my strength. One by one, with all of their devastating attacks, I was struck down with every blow. Thankfully, the equipment I wore was plentiful enough to endure the storm I was experiencing, and thus allowed me to proceed annihilation. Such arrogant scoundrels! They stood no chance against a warrior who knows what crucial weaknesses are when one sees it in clear daylight. Good riddance to them and their insurgent desires. The ancient prophecy has been fulfilled inside this land's border as Odibatarasu, the soon-to-be-lost relative of Akantor and Yukonlos, emerged out of the dunes to follow its instincts for nothing but a gluttonous appetite aimed directly where nourishment was scarce. After a long period of hibernation for it has ended, those highly skilled warriors I've entrusted to thwart the gargantuous reptile did that rejuvenated event justice. Let there be no threat to that ecosystem any longer. The legendary flying comet elder dragon Valstrax, or Valfalk if I may. All I have to say about this one: the Academy told me lies. The star I have wished upon did not grant me an omen of disaster, or whatever they've encrypted on their false descriptions. It gave me a miracle. These wounds will be my pride. How could I possibly forget the inspirational breeze of authenticity residing in the cold, frigid airs of frozen Seaway? Nothing has changed at all since then, and I am glad for that. As for the addition of innovatively remarkable inhabitants lurking on the surface of ice, they have always been such magnificent creatures, and I am grateful to have met them. But then, as the end was about to be reached, my once loyal and brave allies that I've come to know as something more special, all have unfortunately succumbed to a fate worse than death, after they had the bold endeavor for believing that they could possibly have enough courage to slay Disufiroa, the satanic god of the underworld. I tried to warn them of how insurmountably dangerous it is, and that no one has ever made it back alive from the third phase of eternal judgment, but they wouldn't listen. I could only watch from afar as their very life essence was being extracted out of their bodies. Their own ideals led to their demise. Power is not everything. In a world like this, those who are foolish enough to deal with the devil by means of nothing but a test for bravery and endurance will all struggle, and in the end, perish. My comrades may be gone, but they will not be forgotten. And though they have struggled to fight onwards in hopes to escape Disufiroa's hellish domain, it was indeed painful to watch the scene unfold. But I couldn't help but honor their prestigious valor, even if it was about to be extinguished. Let their strong senses of destroyed valor be remembered as a sacrifice to pay for my own salvation. Sometime later, after fulfilling my bestowing gratitude, it was there that a ray of light resonated over and beyond across the Interceptor's base. A transcended wave of pure, holy energy emanated from within the team of Hunter's spiritual essence, swearing allegiance to their own legacy as they engaged Rebediora with all of their combined strength in a relentless attempt to obliterate the cause of eventual disaster striking down outside the area. The elements of honor, bravery, determination, and courage mixed with unspeakable levels of emotion to create a glorified spectacle of their newly born heroic hymn of justice were fully optimized as their greatest weapon to weaken Rebediora's powers and ultimately prevail against its shocking opposition. An event sent from above, so incredibly liberating. It cured me. The very answer I have been seeking to solve all of my problems. And that cure was none other than a reminder of who we are. Do or die, hunt or be hunted. That is the law we, as hunters, must always follow. For the environment, for the protection of humanity, for the sake of the entire world. That is our job. Hearts of true warriors that never hold back against anything. Spirits that never die, and born strong. Now, the time has come for me to carve their names written in stone. Characters sealed permanently as a privilege to remember them by. Hear their names once more, so that they shall be forever known in history. Poke Village, Chaotic Gore Magala, Chameleos, Glavenus, Astalos, Oribatarasu, Falfolk, Frozen Seaway, Disu Filoa, and Ribidiora. I have no intended desire to hold on to this old piece of decayed bronze any longer, now that I have created the golden standard. Everything, at long last, is perfectly balanced, as all things should be, and what it was always meant to be from the beginning. And with that, the deed has been done. I currently have nothing else left that needs to be fixed, but until next time, I bid you all farewell. Thank you all for believing in me, and thank you for watching.